everybody. My name is John.
I'm Bob. He's Bi.
They're Butch.
And together we are the Butch and the Bi.
And this week, we had a good time watching a tale of a father that doesn't want his son.
We had a good time watching some big metal men.
We had a good time watching Kate from Lost have about 4 lines of dialogue.
Oh, we had a good time watching the future of fighting.
Ah, yes. No, the future of fighting is just me and Bunny playing VR boxing together.
Yeah.
We had a good time watching Real Steel. Man, this movie's not way better than I remember it being. It's just been like a decade since I've seen it. And it's one of those movies that holds up really, really well. It's directed by Shawn Levy, who's the guy who did Deadpool 2. He also is doing Deadpool 3. He did The Atom Project. There was another big one that we watched, a couple of... Free Guy.
Yes.
He did Free Guy. He also did Night at the Museum. This guy was all over that like early 2000s to mid 2000s with a bunch of these types of projects. And then he suddenly it was like, oh yeah, now I'm doing all the big IP stuff. But yeah, no, this movie's phenomenal. For those that didn't see Real Steel in 2011 or haven't watched it recently, I don't know. Do you highly recommend? I highly recommend it.
Yeah, no, I had a good time.
Yeah, it was genuinely like, man, it was really good because it was billed as the Rock'em Sock'em Robot movie. And I think we saw, what was it, Corridor Crew did their VFX artist react to it recently. And I was like, oh yeah, that's right. That movie was good. Like I knew it was good for the boxing part. And I kind of forgot how good the performances were from, so we've got Hugh Jackman is playing a abandonee drunk father who is a former boxer turned kind of robot shepherd. he takes these boxing robots in the future that have become the main source of entertainment when it comes to combat sports. And he is remote controlling them for these fights. And he's terrible at it for the most part because he's sad and drunk and hasn't resolved his past trauma.
So he's good until he's distracted, and he's easily distracted is the thing
Very
that I
easily
was
distracted by women.
Yeah. Our first viewing of him, I was like, okay, he's doing good. And I was like, oh, you got cocky and you got distracted.
Mm-hmm.
And that is his downfall.
Yeah. Speaking of getting cocky, he got cocky about 10 years earlier. 11 years earlier.
11.
Yeah, wow. Even like, oh man, I'm an abandonee father. 11 years earlier, he got really cocky with someone and made a baby and then left that woman and she died. And so
Not immediately. She died right before.
She died when he turned 11, basically. Just dropped dead. No, did they say what it was that?
I think they did, but I don't remember anymore.
Wasn't important to the plot. All you need to know, mommy and daddy, dead. And he was going to go live with his aunt, who is, man, talk about having 3 lines of dialogue. She is the doting wife of a bajillionaire, you assume at this point, and is the aunt of Max Kenton, who is Charlie, Hugh Jackman's character, Kenton's son, played by Dakota Goyo, who has done nothing in the last 10 years. He was in a bunch of these movies, like these types of movies and stuff, and then stopped acting because he was a child actor. That was probably not a great situation back in 2011.
Mm-hmm. He's very good in this. I hope he's doing well in his current life.
Yes. And then they are joined by Evangeline Lilly, who is, hot off the heels of Lost. Lost just ended 2 years prior to this coming out. And this is the first thing I think I saw her in after that. I don't know if she's anything else right after. But and she plays the childhood friend kind of, her father was Charlie's boxing mentor. And so they like grew up around each other, but like kind of like Barry Allen and Iris West Allen. It's
the pseudo siblings, but actually we like you with the hots for each other.
Yeah, they shift it like midway through the movie where it's like, hey, we've been close for a long time, but there's no like there's sexual tension, but it's like not addressed sexual tension, and then immediately like he comes back at one point and just cuddles with her in bed, and it's like, oh, okay, yeah, that checks out. And then a bunch of other people in this. Anthony Mackie's in this. Kevin Durand, who people may remember as the Blob from X-Men Origins Wolverine. You know, he's in this with a lot less prosthetics.
But still somehow, that something is still a prosthetic.
No, not in this movie.
You just said a lot less instead of no prosthetics.
A lot less is still the equivalent to no.
It's just funny because The implications, John.
Exactly.
The implications.
Yeah. That's what they called me in high school. That's actually a doo-wop band from the 60s, The Implications.
Everybody, please welcome The Implications.
They were going to be, they had a great number of hits, but the Temptations actually beat them out on all of those songs. They wrote them at the same, like, it was like, oh man, these ideas, they keep getting stolen or something. I don't know.
People were ready for something that was no longer implying. They wanted explicit. And so Temptations won over implications.
Exactly. Yeah, people need you to spell it out to them, and the implications weren't doing that.
I just can't tell if he likes me when he plays this song for me. I don't know. It's the implication.
That could be the implication.
Yeah, it could be the implications.
Another notable cast member in this is Phil Lamar, who is the voice of Jon Stewart Green Lantern from the Justice League animated series. He's literally, there's a bajillion and one projects. I mean, he was on Adventure Time. He's been around the block as a voice actor, and he plays an ESPN boxing narrator correspondent type of thing. But yeah, no, this movie's basic premise, is it's Rock'em Sock'em Robots, but with a lot of heart. Oh, by the way, it's been a hot second since we've done one of these.
I thought we were just gonna roll up like we haven't been anywhere.
Yeah, no, we've been places.
Yeah, emotionally we've been places. Physically, not really.
Yeah, well, you've been really busy.
Yeah, I did a couple of vendor things with my art.
Yeah. Well, you've done the vendor things. You have you're on Arcade's Penny, our arcade team. So you've been doing that occasionally.
I am trained now to stage manage at Arcade.
Yes.
So there's a chance that you won't see me in the box office, but you will hear my voice from the booth.
No matter what, Bob will always be put in a small box at the arcade. Actually, the box office is pretty big now.
Box office is pretty big, and the stage manager booth. The booth is nice and cozy.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, cozy. Is that the word they use in the official training?
The thing about the booth is that you're the only one in there. In the box office, you'll have interns and stuff. But in the booth, it's just you. So it is cozy. It's like a little womb that you live in, and you push all the buttons to make the show happen good.
You heard that here first, folks. The sound booth at the Arcade Comedy Theater is the womb that makes it go vroom. But yeah, you've been busy. I've been depressed.
Oh, to be clear, I've been depressed too, but I've just been busy.
But you've been busy and depressed. I've been depressed and swimming in it. And so yeah, but we realized, hey, you know what? We really like doing this. Bob gave an impassioned spiel, rooting for the show to continue, and the show must go on. It was Bob's Make-A-Wish.
Like they do in the sports movies.
Exactly. Bob beat the shit out of me. And then at the tail, I was like, you can do it. And then I got up and clocked them.
I was thinking of like high school, college, and I wasn't drawing back.
Oh my God, why are high school or college kids beating each other up?
I was thinking, and not of this type of sports movie that we saw, but of the ones where a coach is like, they had us in the first half. I'm not
so the
lie.
Entirety of every episode of Ted Lasso?
Yeah. Ted Lasso doing a really bad job.
I want Ted Lasso in Real Steel too.
Oh
that's the cross. We don't need Fast and the Furious and Transformers. We need Real Steel and Ted Lasso.
Just put Ted Lasso in any sport.
No, you know where I want Ted Lasso? We've talked about this, but we're getting very off topic, but it's still sports, so it's fine. Remember how when we saw Avengers Endgame for the first time, and I was like, oh, I get sports now, right? I want Ted Lasso coaching the fight, or like refereeing the fight in Endgame between Thanos' army and the Avengers. Just like throwing out tickets or whatever they throw at sports players.
Usually flags, I think.
Yeah, but they're little cards.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes they're flags.
You know what the implication of calling a card a flag is? So anyways, we're back. We're going to do this. We're not doing the video versions anymore for the time being, maybe for some special occasions. Back to Real Steel. I'll ask you this. What was your favorite robot? Because we got a good chunk. There were like 7 or 8 robots in this movie. Mm-hmm. You don't need to remember the name.
I mean, you got to love Adam.
Yeah.
He's just good. He's
Spunky.
A good boy. I just aesthetically, I really enjoy the scrap robot that he fought. I was
going to say, I think that's my favorite too. He kind of looks like Frankie from Small Soldiers.
Yeah. I love a guy that's put together from disparate pieces. It's just,
well, that explains this situation.
I love when I'm talking and I realize I'm laying a little joke trail for Jon, and I can see in his eyes also realizing that I'm laying a little joke trail, and he follows it like a little joke monster.
Our relationship is just, you know, those like cartoons where it's the old like railway push cart things.
Mhm.
It's I'm pushing the cart, and then you're constantly picking up the track behind us and putting it in front of us. It's
Yeah.
perfectly synced. That's it. It's what we've been doing for 5 years.
5 years.
5 years, 5 years, 5 years. I want to call him Igor because he looks kind of like Frankenstein-y, but I don't want to call him Frankenstein because that's overlaid. But no, I like that fight. And also that's the first time we finally see our main characters kind of working together and winning, which is really good. Because they, you know, he hasn't been around for that kid's life, and that kid has issues of the daddy variety.
Yeah, I feel like there were a couple things that I wanted to see more of.
Okay.
Which was specifically like any discussion besides we get one little bit talking about mom near the end. And I would like to see maybe a little bit more of that because it sounds like they both say mom was really cool. And it
would have been cool to get a flashback.
Yeah, some sort of flashback, anything sprinkled throughout that showed that, because obviously that was someone that they both loved, and that's their only connection when they meet is this woman. And I would have liked to seen some of that. And the other thing was exploring Adam's like
his whole, because he's like, so yeah, the kid's like, oh, you're different, you're special, you have autonomy,
you're self-aware,
and then they never ever go back to it.
There's a moment where he's looking in the mirror at one point, and that's the thing is that I wish we could have somehow known more about that.
I'm under the impression that they ran out of budget very quickly because the end of this movie, it's not, it feels rushed a little bit. But it's to get that payoff in the time span of the movie kind of thing where they're suddenly at a pro level event kind of thing. And I think they probably were running out of time and budget, especially with the effects, because a lot of these robots were practical components. And that was one of the things that helped really sell it back then and help it hold up now. And man, studios should be taking note, because if you combine those practical elements with what you can do with computers now, instead of entirely putting it all on the computer and the VFX artist and overworking them, you wouldn't have the issue of people's only big complaint about things being like, it looks like a PlayStation 2 game, even though it doesn't really look like a PlayStation 2 game.
That is truly seeing things and being like, yes, even if right now I'm seeing a digital recreation, this was made by hand first, which gave the people doing the digital recreation actual reference and good stuff to work off of. Yeah.
Well, and it also gave the actors so much to work off of. Because it wasn't like, oh, you're looking at a tennis ball to know where they're at kind of thing. Like you're tracking them. And one of the really great components about Adam, the robot that they find at a scrapyard, is that of his autonomy, is that it gives this kind of like a boy and his dog kind of story to Max. And so it's really charming. And Charlie very quickly picks up on the fact that like, oh yeah, kid, you're putting on a show, because he's doing these little dances because the robot has this mirroring chip that lets it mirror whoever he's a sparring bot, and it's all that sort of stuff. And they do this little dance before shows and people eat it up, and I'm like, yeah, that's what makes a show. And I really love that it's kind of that Rocky element of like, you've got the mentor figure who at some point, was the mentee, you can still see the elements of them still being the student, and they're learning by becoming the teacher kind of thing. There's this level of greed that Charlie has from the jump, and that's whittled down in a very natural way, but not in an unearned way. Like, it's clear that whatever has happened with his past has led him down the path of like, okay, well, I'm useless now. And it's kind of something we're getting into with AI, and it's really interesting to watch some of those elements play out in this movie, where it's like, okay, well, you had these athletes that no longer were good enough because they couldn't tear each other limb from limb. And so what are they going to do? Well, okay, some of them are going to become the remote controllers. And this is always an argument when it comes to talking about like infrastructure and changing over to renewable resources like wind, solar, water, as opposed to fossil fuels and such. And it's that like, okay, well, what do you do about everyone that doesn't want to train for that? And that gets into that we just need a UBI. But anyways, I really, really appreciate that this movie does not lean on the spectacle for the core of it. The spectacle is really good, but it is not the core of this movie.
Yeah, no, the relationship between father and son is integral. And I mean, the movie starts with him already very in debt, and then he pushes his luck with his rodeo bot and has to skedaddle real quick when he finds out that the woman that he had made a child with died.
Yeah, it and it was also he was getting out of there because he owed Kevin Durant money. That was the bigger reason. It was not the child.
Yeah, no, but that was a good motivating factor besides just running.
Yeah. Which, by the way, Kevin Durant's a dick in this.
Oh, he does it so good.
Yeah. There's this point. So they've gotten really successful. They've kind of got the Nate from Ted Lasso thing going on, the Wonder Kid thing.
Yeah.
Where they're really, and they go to the giant Coliseum that's like where they host these events. It was the Bing Arena. It was the Microsoft Bing Arena, which we both cackled at when that came on screen. 2011. So far away. But Kevin Durant and his crew show up to get their money, so to speak, but they also are like, we said we were going to beat the hell out of you. So they do. And it's gut-wrenching. Like, because at this point, like, they have finally kind of not perfected their relationship, obviously, but they have gotten it to a point where, like, you're really rooting for them.
Yeah, they've started to realize whose strengths and weaknesses and, like, how they can work together to do a really good job. Not necessarily at the relationship, but at the robot fighting that they're doing.
Yeah.
That's like they're starting to get that down really well.
And it's leading to the positive outcomes in their actual relationship.
Yeah, as you can see them like celebrating together and starting to actually build a bond. And then this cowboy dick shows up.
Yeah. No, it's a rough scene, and I really enjoy that the kid is a kid. Like, he's portrayed so well. He is playing a kid. Like, he's excited about the robot. He's excited about the sports. He has that glimmer in his eye when he learns that his dad was a boxer. The kind of like the little tempers and fights he's having with his dad are very natural, and also just that level of like they treat like he's treated like a kid in a movie, but not as just a prop in the movie, because there's a lot of points where the whole kind of conflict is Charlie and Max kind of arguing over what's the right idea. Should we do this fight? Should we bet this much money? So on and so forth. And he's given a lot of agency and really a lot of scenes to show him really being like, no, we're gonna do the scrapyard fight. Take me. It was called the zoo. We're going to the zoo. Like, and he kept pushing. It's like, okay, we're gonna go. And he's like, no, don't bet that. Like, they were really complimenting each other really well, and it was showing that he was a fully developed character, and especially in that era, it was so rare that you had kids that were if the kid wasn't the main character in a movie, or if it wasn't a kid-centric movie, the kids rarely were not just props in the movie. And this is just a really good example of that kind of dynamic.
Yeah, and the fact that like he has an interest, this is another thing with the world that I'm creating around this movie, and specifically this story, the fanfic I'm writing about this kid and his life with his mother and her talking about his dad. Like, you're gonna ask, you're like, it's my dad. And he's like, robot fighting, and like he has an interest in that. Like, Noisy Boy shows up and he's like, I watched his fight with whoever it was so many times. And he knows Japanese from playing video games, and he knows what the proper. It's such a good moment. It's like, yeah.
Oh, it's also set in
2057?
2027. They had high expectations for what the future looked like.
That's the fun thing about any past movie set in the future, is they had high expectations. Some of them were dystopian, but they were still high expectations.
To be fair, some of those dystopian expectations aren't entirely off.
Oh yeah, no, of course. I'm just trying to imagine 7 years of stuff.
7 years of like the development of the robots?
Yeah.
Think of VR.
Yeah, no, that's what I was thinking of, like. Yeah.
And especially where, like, I mean, if you look at like we can go in my closet and look at the first headset, and Adam was a second generation sparring bot, and he's kind of like clunky, but he's really durable kind of thing. And then you start looking at the newer stuff, and it's really cool looking, but it's also really fragile. Yeah, no, well, and it's also, I think the fragility there for the main bots, it's got to be intentional. because people want to see the carnage, and you might as well make it not immediate destruction, but like easy destruction.
Yeah, it's not the idea that this is a marathon fight like we see at the end, and they go all 5 rounds.
You know how we knew it was in the future?
Mm.
Their smartphones were transparent.
Mm.
All the little like when he's in the truck and he has the little monitor that pops up. It's all just like clear acrylic with LEDs in it.
I love that is what we want so badly.
Mm-hmm.
It's just something we're like, we want these screens, we want these Iron Man screens that
we want
pop
the holograms that make no sense.
We want it so bad. We keep putting it in our speculative fiction. What humans really, because
it's what humans crave.
It's what humans crave is having little rooms that pop up, which like we see Doctor Strange and we're like, yeah, that, but make it tech.
Yeah. Okay, so Evangeline Lilly, very charming in this movie. The kid is enamored with her very quickly. They all have really great chemistry. She must have been shooting something else at the time of this movie, because there's even a part where he calls her to have a conversation and it doesn't bounce back and forth like other phone calls in the movie. And it's just like she had to have been doing something else at this time. But like for the most part, pretty good.
Yeah.
Just very supporting background.
Yeah.
There to remind Charlie of his failures.
Yeah, the voice of reason of, dude, what are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
But also, yeah, no, it's a fun character. Also, like him just like looking at her and making her melt after a bit of time, which then his son does to him. And he's like, ah, damn it.
Yeah. What did I say this? Oh, it was a combination of Big Daddy, the Adam Sandler movie, and Rock'em Sock'em Robots. Because that's a similar premise where it's like he is the kid for a summer kind of thing, and they start out kind of like, oh God, you're a kid, and then it's like, oh, we're best friends, but now you got to go away because I don't have any legal right to you because I sold you. Which is a part of this movie, is that like the 78-year-old man that's married to his ex-sister-in-law is like a bajillionaire and offers? No, he tries to like reason with him, and Charlie pretty immediately goes $75,000, and he's like, and then he goes 100,000.
Yeah, they work out a deal. My first thought when that scene started actually was that because the way the old guy was talking about it a little bit sounded like he was going to be like, please don't make me do this and be a father. And it didn't go that way, but a little bit of me was going to be like, oh, Charlie's making this offer. He's like, oh no, you misunderstand me.
Yeah. There's a version of this movie. It's not a good movie at all. But it's a version of this movie set entirely from the perspective of his time with the aunt in between. And it's just her using him as a prop as a child, because that's clearly like, towards the end, she's got a little more emotionality, but towards the beginning of the movie, it's very like, this is my little poodle I'm going to put in my little bag kind of vibe. But
yeah, I enjoyed her yelling at the end match.
At the game, yeah.
That was,
really good fictional sports. It reminded me of like Echo VR, the Frisbee game that I play a lot of. It's got that same kind of, I just want that. Give me the weird future-y, like unrealistic sports. I don't want to play sports. I want to play fake sports that make me feel like a badass. And this is one of those things that would make me feel like a badass.
Yeah. There are so many just wonderful moments. One of them is when Evangeline Lilly and the kid are both watching him in his element as a boxer, and they like are both tearing up, and like it's really lovely to see someone in their element, especially when it's like Charlie is a person who's not been in his element in a very long time. And it's that moment of seeing someone do something that they love and being like, oh, this is who you are. You're
in that flow state.
Yeah. And
it's interesting watching that now as an adult that has that concept more understood kind of thing. And it's like, yeah, he's such a good boxer character. Like it's a really good like comeback story, kind of redemption arc. You don't feel like it's undeserved throughout the movie. Like, cause the thing is like his whole like, oh, I can get money out of this guy. But like he even frames it as like everybody gets what they want. The kid gets a home. She gets her nephew. I get him out of my hair, and you get to make your wife happy, kind of thing.
I get to pay off my ridiculous debts.
Yes, because I have poor impulse control when it comes to gambling. Oh no. I'm a dad character in a movie. But yeah. Anything else you want to add about real steel? The only real stealing that was happening was our hearts being stolen by the real man. Hugh Jackman. Such a real man.
I feel like people said that and then were also like incredibly betrayed by him singing and doing musicals.
Yeah, and those people can get fucked.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I saw a really unhinged post on Reddit. It was a screenshot of somewhere else that's even more unhinged. Of a photo examination of Henry Cavill by like some QAnon nut, where they're like looking at his eyes and like, no man has those kind of eyes. It's like, clearly it's a trans woman, like, kind of thing. It's like a trans man, like. So you're just attracted to Henry Cavill, but you really need him to be a lady for that to be okay.
There are so many layers of pathos here. Like, dude, you don't even know what's going on in your own brain, and biological essentialism stuff, ridiculous.
God. Imagine being that low on the rung of society.
Then you look at a man and like, his eyes are too beautiful.
He must be a woman.
He must have been assigned female at birth because it's impossible for a man to have eyes that beautiful.
No man can be attractive to me, a real man.
I'm a man and that's a man, and men don't
I'm
lie.
gonna really steal his eye.
Out of his
I want to see
skull.
National Treasure, but like it's like Nick Cage has to steal someone's eyes. It's like Ryan Reynolds' cheekbones or something.
He's stealing all the bits to build the perfect man.
Oh yeah, it's like that one movie, the really bad one, Young Frankenstein.
Mm-hmm.
Any other comments, Bob?
Watch this movie. It's a good time. John constantly yells at me to put my iPad down, and I actually did.
Yeah. It's when I've seen something before and I know there's a thing coming up that's just a visual cue, and if you miss it, you're like,
yeah.
It's gonna, like, I'm like, okay. Like, clearly there's parts, like, during fights and stuff, like, yeah, it looks cool, but I mean, I even drone out a little bit sometimes during things.
But you also have seen it before, and
Yeah.
so there are times I'm looking over at you, and you're on your phone, and I'm like, okay. But yeah, mostly, like, I'm looking back and forth as I'm drawing something. It's not just me, like, doom scrolling at the same time. Like, I am actively drawing a Neopets.
Well, speaking of I was gonna say, where can they find you on the internet?
They can find me at A Small Frog Art on Instagram, on Patreon, where you can support me and see art early, because sometimes I make a whole bunch of art at once and then I release it day by day.
Did you ever set up, like, because I know you took your website down, but isn't the domain still linked to something?
The domain is still up. That is where you can buy stuff directly.
Okay,
That's my
gotcha.
shop at asmallfrogart.com,
Right.
where I have some plushies ready, copies of Pip, various stickers,
Mm-hmm.
and some customs if you have a vision and you want me to bring it to fuzzy life.
Speaking of bringing things that are fuzzy to life, you can occasionally listen to me and my friends talk about random things on my Junk Lobster, is it Hunk About It with Junk Lobster and Friends podcast, which, you know, there's not 4 episodes I have to edit still. And if you're still here through this, go to www.thebutchandtheby.com. That's A-N-D, not ampersand, because the internet does not like ampersands, where you can find all of our episodes. Thanks for listening.
What do you say,
No,
John?
what do you say?
You say it.
You say it.
No, you do.
No, you.
No.
I'm doing a bit. Say it.
Bye.
Oh my God, you stuck my line. Stuck my line.
Stuck my line.
Bye.
Butch.